Welcome to Dr. Jester Talks, and I'm gonna talk about this. From Sky News Australia, the Trump doctrine earns President a third Nobel Peace Prize nomination. Holy shit, that's the third time Trump gets this. I mean, let's face it, Trump has no chance of winning this, and even if he does, even if then every single Nobel linked committee or person that has any pull on this votes or makes a nomination, I don't think the people responsible on giving these awards will even consider or even think on giving Trump the award. But even then, even if it does win, it's still not quite... it doesn't mean much, not as it used to, because the prize has been given to pretty much anybody. Like, for instance, Obama winning without doing a single shitty thing, or a few other people in the past for winning this prize and not really being worth the prize. But even then, it's still something. It's still something. But hopefully he does win. But I'm not holding my breath in Trump winning, because people in there do have TDS. Let's get back to the news, because this is interesting and it just points out the salt on the TDSs. Oh, before I do go on, before this, the TDSs didn't have even a single problem with the Nobel Peace Prize. In fact, they were even suggesting that the great saint, the unmentionable, the greatest of the greatest, the purest of the pure of Sweden, and the unblemished and other quite unimaginable titles, Greta, the unmatchable Thunberg, receives the Nobel Peace Prize. But and now, for instance, the Atlantic even suggested that they shouldn't have the Nobel Peace Prize anymore, that they should be cancelled because Trump got nominated. And the first time was by a Norwegian, and they tried to slam the guy who nominated him for being far right, when in fact he's kind of centrist by any sort of measure. And then there was another Swedish guy who suggested that he should also win the Nobel Peace Prize, and now an Australian. I wonder how many before they try to cancel these people again, or that they suggest that the Nobel Peace Prize be cancelled. Oh boy. Anyway, the Trump doctrine ends President Nobel Peace Prize. It's still from Sky News, but I think you can actually see the thingy here, right around here. It's kind of faded out, but you need to click to read more about the article. But it then goes on to a full-on thingy here to read, but it fades out the logo. Either way, let's keep going. Eminent law professor David Flint is among 4 Australian law professors who are nominating US President Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize on the basis of the Trump doctrine. Only members of a national parliament or law professors are able to nominate others for the Nobel Peace Prize, with President Trump already receiving 2 nominations for his promotion of peace in the Middle East. Only members of the national parliament. Okay. President Trump recently brokered an historic peace deal between the United Arab Emirates and Israel, which aimed to normalize diplomatic relations. This unprecedented deal was closely followed by a similar peace deal. English, paying attention. Followed by a similar peace agreement between Bahrain and Israel. He went ahead. Oh, editors. He went ahead and negotiated against all advice. But he did it with common sense. He negotiated directly with the Arab states concerned, and Israel, and brought them together, Professor Flint. Holy shit, this sounded weird. Or is it my English failing again? He negotiated directly with the Arab states concerned, Arab states. Okay, let's keep going. Professor Flynn told Sky News host Alan Jones that the Trump doctrine is something extraordinary and is emblematic of the two things which guide the president. He has firstly common sense, and he is only guided by national interest, and therefore an interest in the Western alliance, he said. That's logical. That's great, in fact. What he has done with Trump doctrine is that he has decided he will no longer have America in endless wars which achieved nothing but the killing of thousands of young Americans. Hopefully, he's absolutely correct. Wait, shouldn't the end quote here, because there's another quote. Jesus Christ, the editor was sleeping when he checked this article, so he is reducing America's tendency to get involved in any and every war. End quote. The states are lined up, Arab and Middle Eastern. The states are lining up, Arab and Middle Eastern, to join that network of peace, which will dominate the Middle East. End quote. He is really producing peace in the world in a way in which none of his predecessors did, and he fully deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. I cannot agree more. He's absolutely correct. And which failed to mention here is also the peace and normalization. Well, not quite peace, but definitely a very good peace. A step to peace, it's the normalization between Kosovo and Serbia. Yeah, the two are still not trying. Serbia still does not quite recognize Kosovo as an actual independent country, but the bickering between the both of them kind of decreased or ceased, because now they still have. Sorry, I hit the microphone because I'm moving my hands too much. Yeah, anyway, they still normalize it in a sense that now they both have commercial agreements between both countries, and that's a huge step that hasn't happened since the war broke out nearly, let's see, nearly 30 years ago. I think it's 96, 97-ish that the war kind of broke out between those two countries. If I'm not wrong, or when it ended. Either way, it's nearly 30 years ago. And it's quite fascinating how, let's see, nearly almost, kind of almost there. Either way. And then now, as mentioned here in the article, it's between Israel and United Arab Emirates and Israel and Bahrain. Those are huge. You haven't seen a peace deal in nearly 30 years too, because the last one was between Israel and Jordan about 26 or so years ago, and that was huge. In fact, the first one that really had any peace with Israel was between Israel and Egypt. That was around 1979 with Jimmy Carter, who did the Camp David Accords, in which Israel always wanted to give back Sinai, even though Sinai Peninsula, as you know, is a Hebrew name. It was still historically part of Hebrew or Israel. Let's leave it at that. Israel always wanted to give back the Sinai Peninsula, but in exchange of peace and recognition by the Egyptians. And that's how it did it. Both of them achieved peace with that. But Egypt, quite interestingly enough, did not want Gaza back. So Israel, of course, I'm gonna keep this. Of course, I'm keeping Gaza. If you don't want it, what can we do? And it kept. Yes, and we saw the shenanigans, and Israel completely left Gaza in 2005. Well, 15 years ago. Pulled out every single Jew out of the region, left the farms in there for the Palestinians, or Gazans in this case, to farm. What did they do? They destroyed it and took the stuff, the metal and everything that kept the farms, especially I forgot the name. I definitely forgot. Either way, they took the metal used for the farms for protection of the things and created rockets to launch at Israel. And that's not the only case. Egypt also has had problems with the Gazans too, because they also have a wall stopping the Gazans from reaching Egypt. And they still have also attacked the Egyptians too. They still had problems. You know. Either way, that was more or less then that the Palestinians decided, hey, we're not going to try and join anymore to Egypt or getting back to Jordan. We are now going to declare independence from anybody. And that's where the Palestinian identity in on itself kind of became a thing. They started to say they want a different country instead of trying to join back to Egypt as they were originally, or back to Jordan as they were originally, or back to Syria. Even more so, before I go into more details, Palestinians in on itself are mostly immigrants. They are mostly immigrants from Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, etc. Those are the people who were then going to Israel. Even more so, the local people who sold the terrain for a lot of money back to the Jews, but those are in combination. But I'm going to talk mostly about the immigrants, which is kind of the overwhelming majority, kind of 70-80% of those Palestinians. They went in there kind of in a promise by the Arab army, etc., and that they would get all the stuff that the Jews owned after the Arab armies drove the Jews back to the sea in 1948, because they wanted to go and do another genocide just after the Holocaust happened that happened in Nazi Germany. They wanted to wipe them out. But as you all know, the Jews really fought and won that war, even a fledgling state with barely anything for them to fight back with. They had barely any planes or even tanks to fight back, mostly were weapons that got smuggled out of Nazi Germany, for instance. There was even an airplane that was even built, I think, by Czechoslovakia, if I'm not quite wrong, which was an actual copy of the Bf-109. Interesting, isn't it? Anyway, this is huge. I think Trump deserves to win, even though the Peace Prize doesn't mean much today anymore, but still he does deserve to win, but I doubt he will. Anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you in my next video. Good night.